Welcome to the Lost Science Fiction Stories, where extraordinary stories come to life. Enjoy the journey. From the private thoughts of Queen Vexilith of the Crystal Throne, there are exactly 347 crystal conduits running through the western wing of my palace. I know this because I have just spent the last 2 hours listening to my chief engineer explain, in excruciating detail, why they all need to be replaced. The harmonic frequency has degraded by 0.03%, Your Majesty, Engineer Thalvas droned on, his voice somehow managing to make even catastrophic structural failure sound boring. If left unattended, the cascading resonance could potentially destabilize the entire western quadrant within the next century. A century. He was asking me to approve a massive renovation project because something might go wrong in 100 years. I am 347 years old. A century is practically next week to me. But still, the way he said it with such grave concern, as if the palace might collapse tomorrow, and we cannot repair them ourselves. I asked, already knowing the answer. I'm afraid not, Your Majesty. The original installation technique has been lost. We would need to consult with, he paused, and I saw distaste flicker across his face, with an outside expert. There it was. Thalorians don't like admitting we need help from other species. We've been the dominant civilization in this sector for 10,000 years. The idea that we might have lost some piece of knowledge, that we might need to bring in an outsider. It grated, I could see it grated on Thalvas too, but I'm not foolish enough to let pride destroy my palace. What species? I asked. Human, Your Majesty. I blinked. Human. They've only been spacefaring for 2 centuries. How could they possibly know techniques we've forgotten? They don't know our techniques, Your Majesty, but they have developed their own approaches to crystal resonance technology. Apparently, there is a human engineer who has published several papers on harmonic stabilization. The Galactic Engineering Council speaks very highly of him. A human in my palace, working on my ancient sacred crystal conduits. The High Counselor Ixthar was going to have an aneurysm. Very well, I said. Contact this human engineer, but Thalvas, I want him supervised at all times. No access to sensitive areas. No wandering. He comes, he fixes the conduits, he leaves. Of course, Your Majesty. Thalvas bowed. I shall make the arrangements immediately. He left and I sat back on my throne, rubbing my temples. A human. In the Crystal Palace. This was either going to be fascinating or a complete disaster, knowing my luck, probably both. 3 days later, I was in my private study, reviewing agricultural reports, when Kale, one of my younger guards, appeared at the door. Your Majesty, the human engineer has arrived. Already, I'd expected at least a week of travel arrangements and diplomatic protocols. Show him to the Western Wing, I said, and inform Thalvas. Engineer Thalvas is already there, Your Majesty. He asked me to inform you that the human is enthusiastic. The way Kale said enthusiastic suggested it was not a compliment. I should have returned to my reports. I had 17 more provinces to review, but curiosity got the better of me. I think I'll observe this enthusiasm myself, I said, standing. Kale looked surprised but said nothing. He simply bowed and led the way. The western wing was one of the oldest parts of the palace. The corridors here were narrower, the crystal work more intricate. This section had been built nearly 8,000 years ago, during the height of the crystalline Renaissance. Every surface was carved with elaborate patterns that caught and refracted light in ways that modern techniques couldn't replicate. It was beautiful, it was irreplaceable, and apparently it was falling apart. As we approached the main conduit chamber, I heard voices. One was Thalvas's measured, formal tone. The other was higher, faster, more animated. Absolutely incredible. Is this all hand-carved? The precision is remarkable. And the way you've integrated the power distribution through the facet angles, I've never seen anything like it. Back on Earth, we've been trying to achieve this kind of efficiency for decades, but we can never get the crystalline matrix to align properly. How did you? Oh, is that a recursive harmonic amplifier? I thought those were just theoretical. But the voice bubbled with genuine excitement. It was so unexpected, so different from the usual careful, measured tones of palace officials, that I found myself smiling despite myself. I reached the doorway and looked in. The conduit chamber was enormous, with hundreds of crystal channels running through the walls like frozen lightning. Maintenance scaffolding had been erected around one section, and on that scaffolding stood a human. He was smaller than I'd expected. Humans usually were. Maybe 5.5 feet tall, with dark hair that stuck up at odd angles, as if he'd been running his hands through it. He wore practical clothing, all pockets and straps, with various tools hanging from his belt. And he was currently hanging upside down from the scaffolding, peering at one of the conduits with what looked like a scanning device. The structural integrity is still good, he was saying, still upside down. The crystal itself hasn't fractured. It's just the harmonic resonance that's degraded. If we can recalibrate the frequency matrices and maybe reinforce the primary junctions with a stabilization field. Oh, we'd need to do it in stages, though. Can't risk cascade failure, but it's definitely fixable. He flipped right side up with casual ease, and that's when I got my first clear look at his face. He was young, maybe 30 in human years. His face was animated, expressive, his eyes bright with enthusiasm as he gestured at the conduits. He had what humans call a nice smile, wide and genuine, the kind of smile that made you want to smile back. "This is incredible work," he said to Thalvas, who looked like he wasn't sure whether to be flattered or offended. Whoever designed this system was a genius. The elegance of it, the way everything interconnects, it's like music, you know. Like a symphony in crystal. Thalvas cleared his throat. "Yes, well, can you repair it?" "Oh, absolutely. It'll take some time, maybe 2 weeks to map all the harmonics, then another week for the actual recalibration. But I can definitely save it. You won't need to replace anything." His smile got even wider. "This is going to be so much fun." Fun. He thought repairing 8,000-year-old crystal conduits was going to be fun. I decided immediately that I liked this human. "And you're certain you can work without damaging the existing structure?" Thalvas pressed. "Positive. I'll be incredibly careful. These conduits are works of art. I'm not going to hurt them." He patted one of the crystal channels affectionately like it was a pet. Thalvas looked at me, clearly asking for guidance. I nodded slightly. If this human could save the western wing without replacing everything, he was worth whatever oddities came with him. I was about to announce my presence when the human spoke again, but this time, he wasn't talking to Thalvas. He was muttering to himself, the way people do when they're thinking out loud. "Need to check the eastern junction next," he murmured, climbing higher on the scaffolding. "And probably the harmonic dampers. If those are degraded too, we'll need to. Oh, there's the Queen's quarters, right. Wonder if the conduits extend that far." He pulled out what looked like a holographic map and studied it intently. "The Crystal Palace. Even the name is beautiful. And the Queen Vexilith. The reports say she's been ruling for almost 90 years. That's so long. I wonder what she's like. Probably terrifying. Queens are usually terrifying." I raised an eyebrow. "Terrifying? But I saw a portrait in the entrance hall," he continued, still completely absorbed in his map. Wow, she's actually really beautiful, like stunning. I mean, obviously she's an alien, but still. Those eyes like ice crystals. And the way she carries herself in the portrait, all regal and powerful. Yeah, beautiful." He said it so casually, so matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. I felt something strange flutter in my chest. When you're a queen, people call you beautiful all the time. It's part of the protocol. Formal compliments, carefully worded praise, all designed to flatter and curry favor. But this human, this Finn Garrett, according to the name patch on his clothing, hadn't said it to flatter me. He didn't even know I was here. He just said it. Stated it as an objective fact, the way he'd commented on the crystalline matrix or the harmonic amplifiers. The queen is beautiful, the sky is purple, water is wet, simple, honest, true. I didn't know what to do with that. Your Majesty, Kale whispered beside me, should we announce your presence? I should have said yes, protocol dictated it. But I found myself shaking my head. Not yet, I murmured back. I want to observe him work. Thalvas, of course, had noticed me. His eyes had widened when I entered, and he'd bowed instinctively. But I'd put one finger to my lips, signaling silence. He looked confused but obeyed. The human Finn was still talking to himself, completely oblivious. Okay, so if I start with the primary conduits and work outward, that should minimize disruption. Don't want to accidentally shut off power to something important. Can you imagine? Sorry, Your Majesty, I accidentally turned off all the lights in your bathroom. That would be embarrassing. He laughed at his own joke. It was a nice laugh, warm and unself-conscious. Although, he continued, moving to examine another section of conduit, she probably has servants for everything anyway. Royal life must be so weird. Everyone bowing all the time, having to be formal constantly, never being able to just relax. I wonder if she ever gets tired of it. Being a queen, I mean. It seems exhausting. He paused, studying the crystal closely. But I guess she's been doing it for 90 years, so she must be good at it. And the palace is incredible, so clearly she takes care of things. Plus, the way the staff talks about her, respectful but not fearful, that's a good sign. Some rulers, their people are terrified of them. But here it's more like admiration, which is nice, shows she's probably a good queen. He nodded to himself, as if confirming his own analysis. Yeah, beautiful and competent. That's a good combination for a ruler. I felt my face growing warm. This was ridiculous. I was 347 years old. I'd received countless compliments, attended thousands of formal events, negotiated with dozens of species. I'd faced down rebellions and political coups. And yet here I was, standing in a doorway, feeling flustered because a human engineer had absent-mindedly called me beautiful. This was undignified. Queens did not get flustered. Queens certainly did not eavesdrop on casual conversations and feel pleased about compliments that weren't even directed at them. I should leave. Right now. Before this got any more ridiculous. But I didn't move. Finn had pulled out a small tool and was making minute adjustments to one of the conduits. His hands moved with confident precision, and I found myself impressed despite myself. He clearly knew what he was doing. Just need to recalibrate the frequency stabilizers, he muttered. Then we can move to the next section. This is going to take a while, but it'll be worth it. Can't let something this beautiful fall into disrepair. The conduits or the queen? Thalvas asked suddenly, his voice dry. I nearly jumped. I'd forgotten he was there. More importantly, I'd forgotten he could hear everything Finn was saying. Finn looked up, startled. What? Oh. I meant the conduits, obviously. The crystal work is. Wait, did I say something about the queen? His eyes widened. Oh no, I did, didn't I? I was thinking out loud again. I do that. Sorry, That's probably inappropriate, isn't it? Commenting on the queen's appearance. Somewhat, Thalvas said, but I caught the slightest hint of amusement in his voice. Though I doubt Her Majesty would object to being called beautiful. Still, I shouldn't. I mean, it's unprofessional. I'm here to fix crystal conduits, not. Finn trailed off, looking genuinely embarrassed. Sorry, I'll try to keep my thoughts to myself. Perhaps that would be wise, Thalvas agreed. But he was smiling slightly, I noticed. Thalvas never smiled. The human was already having an effect on my usually stern chief engineer. Finn went back to work, but now he was very deliberately not talking. His lips were pressed together, like he was physically preventing words from escaping. It was oddly endearing. I decided it was time to make my presence known. Kale had been giving me increasingly confused looks, clearly wondering why we were just standing in the doorway. I stepped into the chamber. Engineer Garrett, I said formally. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Finn spun around so fast he nearly fell off the scaffolding. His scanning device slipped from his hand. He lunged for it, caught it, and in the process, tangled his foot in one of the scaffolding supports. For a moment he hung there, half upside down, holding his scanner, staring at me with an expression of absolute horror. "Your Majesty," Thalva said quickly, bowing, "I didn't realize you were." "I arrived a few minutes ago," I said calmly. "I wanted to observe the human's assessment of the situation." Finn had managed to untangle himself and was now standing at something resembling attention, though he looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. His face had gone through several interesting color changes. Currently it was settling on a deep red that looked almost painful. "Your Majesty," he managed, his voice slightly strangled. How long have you been?" "Long enough," I said, keeping my expression neutral. If possible, his face got even redder. "I am so sorry," he said in a rush. I have this terrible habit of thinking out loud, and I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. Sometimes my brain and my mouth don't communicate properly and—" "Breathe, Engineer Garrett," I interrupted gently. "You're going to hyperventilate." He took a gulp of air. "Right, breathing, good idea." There was a moment of excruciating silence. Finn looked like he was trying to decide whether to apologize again or simply die of embarrassment on the spot. I decided to take mercy on him. "Engineer Thalvas tells me you can save the Western Wing's conduits without replacing them," I said, as if the last few minutes hadn't happened. "Is this assessment accurate?" Finn blinked, clearly not expecting me to just move on. Yes, Your Majesty. The damage is repairable. It'll take time, but the structural integrity is sound. We can restore the harmonic resonance to near-original specifications." "Near-original?" "Well, 8,000 years of use has created some unavoidable degradation, but I can get it to at least 98% efficiency. Maybe 99 if we're lucky." "That would be acceptable," I said. Then, because I couldn't quite help myself, I added, "And you believe the conduits are beautiful?" Oh, I was being cruel. His face, which had started to return to a normal color, immediately flushed red again. Yes, they're incredibly well designed, the craftsmanship is." He stopped, took a breath. "Yes, Your Majesty, they're beautiful." "I see." I managed to keep my voice serious, though I could feel amusement bubbling up inside me. "Well, I'm glad my palace meets with your aesthetic approval." "Your Majesty," he said miserably. Behind me, I heard Kale make a sound that might have been a stifled laugh. "You may continue your work, Engineer Garrett," I said. "I trust you will keep me informed of your progress." "Yes, Your Majesty, absolutely." I did not check on the human engineer's progress that evening, or the next morning. That would have been excessive. I had an entire empire to run, after all, important matters that required my attention. The fact that I found myself wondering what he was doing approximately every 20 minutes was completely irrelevant. "Your Majesty," my secretary, Liz, stood in the doorway of my study. "You've been staring at the same agricultural report for the past 15 minutes. Is something wrong with the grain projections?" I blinked and looked down at the document in front of me. "Right, grain projections, fascinating." "No, everything is fine," I said, setting it aside. "I was simply considering the implications. The implications of wheat yields in the northern provinces." "Yes." Liz didn't look convinced, but she was too polite to press further. "High Counselor Ixthar is requesting an audience. He says it's urgent." Of course he was. I'd been expecting this since yesterday. "Send him in." Ixthar entered with his usual slow dignity. He bowed, then fixed me with a look that suggested he knew exactly what I'd been doing in the Western Wing yesterday. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I have heard interesting reports about the human engineer." "He's competent," I said. "Engineer Thalvas is satisfied with his initial assessment." "I see. And is it true that you personally went to observe him working?" "I wanted to ensure he was suitable for the task." "Naturally." Ixthar's expression suggested he didn't believe that for a second. "And did you find him suitable?" "Very." "How fortunate." He paused. I also heard an interesting rumor from the guards, something about the human making. Inappropriate comments. Word had spread already. Of course it had. Nothing stayed secret in the palace for long. The human has a habit of thinking out loud, I said calmly. He wasn't aware I was present. It was harmless. Harmless? Ixthar studied me. Your Majesty, forgive my directness, but you seem different. Different how? You're smiling. I touched my face. I was smiling, wasn't I? Perhaps I'm simply in a good mood. You're never in a good mood after reviewing agricultural reports. He had a point. The human is amusing, I admitted. That's all. It's been a while since we've had someone in the palace who isn't afraid of me. He should be afraid of you. You're the queen. Perhaps, but it's refreshing to be seen as something other than terrifying. Ixthar's expression softened slightly. Your Majesty, you do realize that if you show too much interest in this human, the court will talk. The court always talks. Yes, but he hesitated. I would not want you to be disappointed. He's only here for 2 weeks, then he'll leave. Was that what this was about? Ixthar was worried about me getting attached. I'm not expecting anything, Ix, I said gently. I just find him entertaining. That's permitted, isn't it? Of course, Your Majesty. But he still looked concerned. After he left, I sat there for a long moment thinking. Was Ixthar right? Was I setting myself up for disappointment? Probably. But I was going to enjoy these 2 weeks anyway. That afternoon, I had a perfectly legitimate reason to visit the Western Wing. I needed to approve the renovation timeline. It wasn't because I was curious about what Finn was doing. Not at all. When I arrived, I found the conduit chamber transformed. Scaffolding now covered 3 walls, covered in equipment I didn't recognize. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing what looked like frequency analyses and structural diagrams. And in the center of it all, Finn hung upside down again, making adjustments to one of the conduits. He was talking to himself, of course. If I adjust the harmonic frequency by 0.07%, that should bring the resonance back into alignment. But I need to check the cascade effect on the secondary channels. Don't want to fix one problem and create another. That would be bad. Very bad. The Queen would probably have me executed. Do they still do executions here? Should have asked about that. Too late now. I cleared my throat softly. Finn jerked so hard he literally flipped completely around on the scaffolding, somehow ending right side up. His eyes went wide when he saw me. Your Majesty. He nearly fell again, caught himself on a support beam. I wasn't. I didn't mean the thing about executions, that was just. We haven't executed anyone in over 300 years, Engineer Garrett, I said, unable to stop myself from smiling. You're quite safe. Oh good, that's good. He took a breath. I should really stop thinking out loud. It's an endearing quality. He blinked, endearing. Had I said that out loud? Apparently I had. How embarrassing. I meant. Informative, I corrected. It helps me understand your thought process. Right, informative. He didn't look convinced. There was a moment of awkward silence. Finn seemed to be trying very hard not to say anything, which just made him look more uncomfortable. How is the work progressing? I asked, taking mercy on him. Oh, right, the work. He practically leaped at the change of subject. It's going really well, actually. Better than I expected. The degradation is consistent across all the primary conduits, which means I can develop a standardized recalibration procedure instead of having to customize each one. That'll save time. He gestured to one of the holographic displays. See, these are the frequency readings from the main junction. The harmonic resonance has shifted by about 4% from the original specifications. That doesn't sound like much, but over 8,000 years, it's caused microfractures in the crystalline matrix. I moved closer to study the display. The patterns were beautiful, complex waveforms that pulsed and shifted in mesmerizing ways. These fractures, I said, can they be repaired? Not exactly, but I can work around them. If I adjust the frequency to compensate for the structural changes, the conduits will actually become more stable than they were before. It's like, imagine you have an old bridge. You can't replace the stones, but you can adjust how the weight is distributed to make it stronger. A bridge made of light and sound, I murmured. Exactly, his face lit up. That's exactly what it is. Your ancestors understood something that most species still haven't figured out. That energy can be structured just as precisely as matter. These conduits aren't just channels, they're architectural elements. They're load-bearing members made of pure resonance. The way he talked about it, with such enthusiasm and genuine appreciation, it reminded me of the old chronicles, the ones written by the original builders. They'd approached the crystal work the same way as art and science combined. You understand it, I said, the philosophy behind the design. How could I not? It's brilliant. Whoever designed this system wasn't just an engineer, they were a visionary. They saw possibilities that most people couldn't even imagine. He paused, looking almost shy. That's why I love this work. Getting to study things like this, learning from people who lived thousands of years ago. It's like having a conversation across time. A conversation across time, I repeated softly. I've never heard it described that way. Well, it's true, isn't it? They made something beautiful and functional, and I get to appreciate it and learn from it. That's a kind of communication. He gestured to the conduits. They're speaking to me through their work, and I'm trying to listen carefully so I can respond appropriately. I found myself staring at him. This human, this young engineer who'd been in my palace for barely a day, understood the Crystal Palace better than most Thalorians who'd lived here their entire lives. I started then stopped. What was I going to say? That's beautiful. That's profound. That's exactly how I feel about my own heritage, but no one ever seems to understand. Sorry, Finn said quickly, misreading my silence. I'm rambling. I do that when I get excited about something. My colleagues say I can talk about harmonic resonance for hours if someone doesn't stop me. Please don't apologize, I said. I find your perspective refreshing. Refreshing. He smiled slightly. That's a nice way of saying weird but not terrible. No, I mean it genuinely. Most people see the palace as just a building, old and impressive but still just a structure. You see it as, I searched for the right word, as a living conversation. Because it is. Everything people make is a conversation. Architecture, art, music. It's all us trying to communicate with each other across space and time. This palace is thousands of people talking to millions more, saying, look what we built, look what we dreamed, look what we achieved. He said it so simply, like it was obvious, like everyone should see the world this way. I realized I was smiling again. Ixthar was right. I did seem to smile more around this human. Engineer Garrett, I said slowly, would you be willing to join me for dinner this evening? The words were out before I'd fully thought them through. Finn's eyes went very wide. Dinner with you, the Queen. Unless you prefer to eat alone in your quarters. No, I mean, yes, I mean, he took a breath. I would be honored, Your Majesty. Excellent, I'll have someone escort you to the dining hall at sunset. I turned to leave, then paused. And Finn. It was the first time I'd used his given name. He noticed, I saw him notice. Yes, Your Majesty. Feel free to think out loud during dinner. I find it enlightening. I left before he could respond, but I heard him whisper to himself. Did the Queen just invite me to dinner? Did that actually happen? This is either the best or worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I can't tell which. I smiled all the way back to my quarters. Dinner was supposed to be informal. Just the two of us, in the small dining room rather than the grand hall. I told the kitchen to prepare a simple meal, nothing too elaborate that might make Finn uncomfortable. I changed from my formal robes into something simpler. Not casual exactly, queens don't do casual, but less intimidating. More approachable. I told myself I was doing this purely out of diplomatic courtesy, making a foreign visitor feel welcome. Nothing more. Liz, who'd helped me choose the outfit, hadn't said anything. but she'd been smiling in that knowing way that suggested she could see right through me. When Finn arrived, escorted by Kale, he looked absolutely terrified. He'd changed clothes too, I noticed. Instead of his practical work gear, he wore what was probably his version of formal wear: dark pants, a jacket that didn't quite fit right, and a shirt that looked like he'd just discovered it was wrinkled. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing awkwardly, "thank you for inviting me. Thank you for accepting." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please sit." He sat down very carefully, like he was afraid the chair might explode. His hands fidgeted with the napkin. He kept glancing around the room at the crystal walls, the floating light fixtures, the elaborate place settings. This wasn't going to work if he was this nervous. "Finn," I said gently, "I'm not going to execute you for using the wrong fork." He let out a startled laugh. "That's good to know, although now I'm going to be paranoid about which fork to use." "Use whichever one you want, I don't care." Queens are supposed to care about protocol. Perhaps I'm not a very good queen then. That made him look up, meeting my eyes directly for the first time since he'd entered. "I doubt that. Though, the way everyone talks about you, your staff, the guards, even Engineer Thalvas, who doesn't seem to like anyone, they all respect you. Not just because you're the queen, but because they trust you. That doesn't happen by accident." It was such a simple observation, but it made something warm bloom in my chest. "Thank you," I said softly. The servants brought the first course, a light soup that I knew was suitable for human digestion. Liz had checked with the Galactic dietary database to make sure. Finn picked up a spoon, the correct one, I noticed with amusement, and tried the soup. His eyebrows rose. "This is incredible. What is it?" "Crystal melon soup. It's a delicacy from the southern regions. It tastes like sunshine, if sunshine were a flavor." He tried another spoonful. "How is that possible?" "The crystal melons grow in fields of prismatic glass. They absorb the light as they grow. It affects the taste." "That's amazing. Everything on your planet is so integrated. The technology, the food, even the architecture, it's all connected to the crystal, isn't it? It's not just a resource. It's a fundamental part of your culture. Most visitors don't notice that. Most visitors probably aren't paying attention." He set down his spoon. "Can I ask you something? And please tell me if I'm being too direct. You may ask, why did you invite me to dinner? I'm just an engineer. You must have hundreds of more important things to do." I considered my answer carefully. I could give him something diplomatic, something safe. But Finn had been honest with me, accidentally perhaps, but still honest. He deserved the same in return. "You see my palace differently than anyone else I've met," I said. "You see it the way I do, as something alive, something meaningful. Most people just see old stones and valuable materials, but you see the conversation." "The conversation," he repeated, smiling slightly. "Yes, and I hesitated. I've spent 90 years ruling, 90 years of protocol and ceremony and careful diplomacy. It's necessary, and I don't regret it. But sometimes I forget that there's joy in the work, that the things we build and create matter beyond their practical function." "You reminded me of that," I continued. "In the conduit chamber, talking about harmonic resonance like it was music, getting excited about 8,000-year-old engineering. You reminded me why I love this palace, why I fight to preserve it." Finn was very quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "I think that might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Then the people in your life haven't been paying attention." He laughed, but it was a warm laugh this time, not nervous. "Maybe not." The servants brought the main course, and we ate in companionable silence for a while. But it wasn't uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of quiet that settles between people who don't feel the need to fill every moment with words. Eventually, Finn spoke again. "Can I tell you something embarrassing?" "Please do." "When I was preparing for this assignment, I read everything I could find about Thaloria. History, culture, technology, everything. And I saw your portrait. The official one in the throne room. I'm aware of it. Right, well, he paused, his face starting to redden. I thought it was beautiful, the portrait, I mean, the way it captured, he stopped. I'm making this worse, aren't I? But no, I said, fascinated. Please continue. I just mean, the portrait showed someone powerful and distant, untouchable, but sitting here talking to you. He met my eyes. You're not untouchable, you're real. And that's so much better than the portrait. My breath caught. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. No one had ever looked past the crown and the throne and seen me. Finn, I started, not entirely sure what I was going to say. But before I could, Ambassador Krathix of the Cletharian Empire was exactly as unpleasant as I remembered from our last meeting, 15 years ago. Tall, gray-skinned, with 4 arms that he used to gesture dramatically whenever he wanted to emphasize a point, which was constantly. He was also incredibly loud. Territorial rights that have been recognized for 3 centuries. He was shouting as I entered the throne room. And now you dare to establish mining operations in the Vex system. This is an act of aggression. I walked slowly down the crystal pathway, letting him see me approach. Letting him see the crown, the robes, the absolute authority I carried. Sometimes the best diplomatic strategy was simply to remind someone exactly who they were dealing with. The effect was immediate. Krathix stopped mid-gesture, his 4 arms freezing in various dramatic positions. Ambassador Krathix, I said coolly, ascending to my throne. How unfortunate that you felt the need to arrive unannounced. We could have prepared a proper welcome. It wasn't a welcome he wanted, and we both knew it. But protocol was a weapon, and I was very good at wielding it. I require no welcome, Your Majesty, he said stiffly. I require answers. The Vex system belongs to Cletharian space. Your mining operations there are illegal. But I settled onto my throne, arranging my robes carefully, making him wait, making him stand there while I got comfortable. The Vex system, I said finally, was named after my dynasty. The territorial claim was established 800 years ago, during the crystalline expansion. Your people acknowledged this claim in the Treaty of 7 Stars. That treaty is outdated. The Cletharian Empire has expanded significantly since then. We have stations throughout that sector, by the principle of active occupation. Active occupation does not override established territorial claims, Ambassador, especially when those claims were formally recognized by your own government. The government that signed that treaty no longer exists. And yet its successor government, your current emperor, has never formally challenged the treaty. Until now, apparently. Krathix's face darkened, all 4 of his hands clenched into fists. The emperor demands that you cease all mining operations immediately and withdraw from the Vex system. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war. There it was, the actual threat. Around me, I felt my court tense. War with the Cletharians would be devastating. They were one of the few empires in the sector that could actually match our military strength. A conflict would cost thousands of lives and drain both our resources. But I couldn't show weakness. Not now, not ever. Is that your emperor's final position? I asked, my voice cold as the void between stars. It is. Then you may tell your emperor this. The Thalorian Empire does not respond to threats. We respond to diplomacy, to reason, to law. If he wishes to challenge our territorial claims, he may do so through the proper channels. The Galactic Council, arbitration, peaceful negotiation. But if he chooses war, I leaned forward slightly. He will discover that the Crystal Throne has stood for 10,000 years not because we are weak, but because we are unbreakable. The throne room was absolutely silent. Even Krathix seemed momentarily at a loss for words. Then he bowed, stiffly, minimally, barely more than a nod. I will convey your message to the Emperor, but know this, Your Majesty. The Cletharian Empire will not be denied what is rightfully ours. One way or another, the Vex system will be ours. This audience is concluded, I said flatly. Ambassador Krathix, you and your delegation will leave Thaloria by dawn. My guards will escort you to your ship. We don't need an escort. I insist. I gestured, and 20 of my own guards stepped forward, matching his 20, making it very clear that this was not optional. Krathix glared at me for a long moment, then turned and stalked toward the exit, his delegation following. The guards fell in around them. As soon as the throne room doors closed, I allowed myself to slump slightly. The regal persona was exhausting to maintain, especially when every instinct was screaming at me to throw something at that arrogant ambassador's head. Your Majesty handled that brilliantly, Ixthar said quietly, approaching the throne. I handled it adequately, I corrected. He's going to report back to his emperor that I refused to negotiate. This will escalate. Perhaps, but you also made it clear that threats won't work. That's important. I rubbed my temples. A headache was forming behind my eyes. What's the current status of our forces in the Vex system? 3 mining stations, 2 patrol ships, and approximately 400 personnel. Against how many Cletherian assets? Unknown, but their nearest military station is only 6 hours away. If they decided to attack, we'd lose the system before we could send reinforcements, I finished. Wonderful. Your Majesty, perhaps we should recall our people from the Vex system, temporarily, until the diplomatic situation clarifies. And show weakness, let them think threats work. I shook my head. No, but double the patrol ships. And send a message to the Galactic Council. Get this on the official record before Krathix can spin his own version of events. Yes, Your Majesty. I stood, my headache pounding now. I'm going to my private study. Unless the Cletherians declare war in the next hour, I don't want to be disturbed. Of course, Your Majesty. I walked out of the throne room, my mind already spinning through scenarios. Military options, diplomatic channels, possible compromises that wouldn't look like weakness. I was so absorbed in my thoughts that I almost didn't hear the sound. It was faint, a voice echoing from somewhere nearby, muttering, talking to itself. Oh no, Finn. I'd completely forgotten about Finn. Kale was supposed to escort him back to his quarters, but that had been over an hour ago. Where was he? The muttering was coming from the direction of the private galleries, a section of the palace that was decidedly not open to visitors. I hurried toward the sound, my headache forgotten. Really should have asked for a map, Finn's voice was saying. Big palace, very big palace. Lots of hallways that all look the same. This is fine, totally fine, I'll just keep walking until I find something I recognize. I rounded a corner and found him standing in the middle of the crystal gallery, staring at a wall of portraits. My ancestors, going back 6,000 years, all frozen in crystal frames. Oh good, more portraits, he was saying. That's helpful, very helpful, because what I really needed was to see more paintings of people who probably wouldn't want me wandering around their palace. Finn, I called out. He spun around so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. Your Majesty, I am so sorry I got lost. Kale had to respond to some emergency. He told me to wait, but then I thought I could just find my own way back, and clearly that was a terrible decision, because now I'm in what looks like a very private, very important gallery of ancestors and... Breathe, I interrupted, walking toward him. He gulped air, breathing right. Despite everything, the Cletherian crisis, the headache, the potential war, I found myself smiling. Again. How long have you been wandering? About 45 minutes, I think maybe an hour, he looked sheepish. I tried to retrace my steps from the dining room, but everything is so beautiful I kept getting distracted. And then I took a wrong turn, and then another wrong turn, and now I'm here, wherever here is. This is the Crystal Gallery. Private family portraits. So definitely not where I should be. Definitely not. I'm so sorry, I'll just go if you point me in the right direction. He paused. Actually, can you just draw me a map, a very detailed map, with landmarks and maybe some warnings like, don't go this way. This leads to the Queen's private chambers or whatever. Finn, I said, and something in my voice made him stop babbling. It's all right, you're not in trouble. I feel like I should be in trouble. I'm in the private family gallery. That seems like the kind of thing people get in trouble for. Under normal circumstances, yes, but tonight has been complicated. And honestly, finding you here, listening to you panic about being lost. I smiled. It's actually the best thing that's happened all evening. He blinked. Really? Really? We stood there for a moment in the quiet gallery, surrounded by 6,000 years of my family's history. Can I ask what happened? Finn said carefully, with the ambassador, you looked tense when you left dinner. The Cletharians are threatening war over a territorial dispute. His eyes widened. War, actual war. Hopefully not, but possibly. That's terrible, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. I know, but still, that's a lot of pressure. Having to make decisions that could affect millions of people. He looked at me thoughtfully. How do you handle it, the weight of it all? No one had ever asked me that before. Not directly. Not with such simple, genuine curiosity. Most of the time, I don't think about it, I admitted. If I focused on the weight of every decision, I'd never be able to make any, so I just do what seems right in the moment and trust that my instincts are sound. And are they? Sound, I mean. I've kept my empire stable for 89 years, so presumably yes. That's impressive. He turned to look at the portraits. Are all of these your ancestors? Yes, going back to the founding of the Crystal Throne. He moved closer to examine one of the older portraits. They all look so formal, serious. That's rather the point of formal portraits, I guess, but it must be strange having all these people watching you all the time, judging whether you're living up to their legacy. I looked at the portraits, at faces I'd known my entire life, at the weight of expectation they represented. Sometimes, I said quietly, I wonder what they'd think of me, whether they'd approve of my decisions, whether I'm honoring their legacy or slowly destroying it. Finn looked at me surprised. You really worry about that? Constantly. But you're an amazing queen. Everyone says so. Everyone might be biased. I'm not biased. I barely know you and I think you're. He trailed off, his face reddening. Sorry, I'm doing it again, speaking without thinking. What were you going to say? Just that you're impressive, not just as a queen but as a person. The way you handled that ambassador. I was watching from the corridor before I got lost. You were so controlled, so powerful. But then here, talking to me, you're just real. There was that word again, real. Thank you, I said softly. That means more than you know. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Finn spoke again, his voice hesitant. Can I tell you something? And please don't take this the wrong way. Go ahead. When I first got this assignment, I was terrified. An alien queen who'd been ruling for 90 years. I thought you'd be ancient and intimidating and probably annoyed that they sent some random human to work on your palace. And now I think. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think you're the most interesting person I've ever met, and I'm really glad I got lost because it meant I got to talk to you like this. Not as Queen Vexilith of the Crystal Throne, but just you. My heart did something strange in my chest, something warm and fluttery and completely inappropriate for a 347-year-old queen. Finn, I started. But before I could continue, there was a sound from the corridor. Footsteps, multiple footsteps. Then Ixthar's voice. Must be around here somewhere. The guard said he saw someone in this section. Ixthar appeared around the corner, accompanied by 2 guards. He stopped short when he saw us. Your Majesty, we were searching for Engineer Garrett, when Kale reported that he'd been unable to return him to his quarters due to the emergency. He looked between us, his expression carefully neutral. I apologize for the interruption. No need to apologize, Ix. I found him wandering the galleries. I turned to Finn. These guards will escort you back to your quarters, with a detailed map this time. Right, yes, thank you. Finn bowed awkwardly. And thank you for talking with me, Your Majesty. The guards led him away. I heard him whisper to one of them. Did I just make everything weird? I feel like I made everything weird. The Queen probably thinks I'm a complete disaster. I smiled despite myself. Ixthar waited until Finn was out of earshot before speaking. Your Majesty, forgive me, but I must ask, are you becoming attached to the human? Don't be ridiculous. Then why were you in the Crystal Gallery with him, alone, discussing personal matters? I was simply being courteous to a guest. In the private family gallery, at midnight, after a diplomatic crisis. Ixthar's expression was stern but not unkind. Your Majesty, I say this with the utmost respect, you're lying to yourself. Was I probably? Even if I was becoming fond of Engineer Garrett, I said slowly, it's irrelevant. He's here for 2 weeks, then he leaves, that's all there is to it. Is it? It has to be, Ix. I'm the queen, I can't just. I gestured helplessly. I can't just develop feelings for a human engineer who talks to himself and gets lost in my palace. Why not? Because it's inappropriate. Because it would complicate diplomatic relations. Because he's a temporary visitor and I'm permanent fixture of Thalorian society. Because you're afraid, Ixthar said gently. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. He was right, I was afraid. It's been a very long time since anyone made me feel. I struggled for the right word. Young, excited about something other than duty and protocol. He talks about my palace like it's alive, and he looks at me like I'm a person instead of an institution. And yes, that terrifies me. Because in 2 weeks he'll leave. Exactly. Ixthar was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Your Majesty, I have served you for 60 years. In that time, I have never seen you prioritize your own happiness over your duty. Not once. That's what being queen means. Perhaps, but I wonder. He looked at me thoughtfully. What if just this once you allowed yourself to be happy, even if it's temporary, even if it ends? That sounds like a recipe for heartbreak. Better a brief heartbreak than a lifetime of regret. He bowed. Think about it, Your Majesty. Now you should rest. Tomorrow we'll need to address the Cletharian situation formally. He left me standing alone in the Crystal Gallery, surrounded by my ancestors, thinking about a human engineer who saw crystal conduits as conversations across time. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about Finn's words, about being real, about being interesting rather than just intimidating. When had I stopped being a person and become purely a role? Somewhere around year 20 of my reign, probably. After the first few assassination attempts, the political coups, the endless ceremonies and treaties and compromises, it was easier to be the queen than to be Vex. Safer, less painful. But Finn had seen through it somehow. Seen past the crown and the throne and all the formal protocols. And now I couldn't stop thinking about him. This was ridiculous. I was 347 years old. I'd outlived 3 husbands, countless lovers, and more friendships than I could count. I knew better than to get attached to someone who would be gone in less than 2 weeks. And yet, the next morning, I found myself walking toward the western wing before I'd consciously decided to go there. My feet apparently had their own ideas about how I should spend my time. When I arrived at the conduit chamber, I found Finn exactly where I expected him to be, hanging upside down on the scaffolding, completely absorbed in his work. And if I route the overflow through the tertiary channels, that should prevent any cascade failures. But I need to test it first. Can't risk damaging the original work. The engineers who built this would haunt me. Assuming Thalorians believe in ghosts. Do they believe in ghosts? Should ask the queen. No, wait, that's a weird question. Hey, Your Majesty, do your people have ghosts? Yeah, that's not going to make me sound crazy at all. I cleared my throat. Finn's reaction was identical to yesterday. He jerked, spun, and somehow ended up right side up through what looked like pure panic and luck. Your Majesty. His face went red. I was just. The ghost thing was just idle speculation. We do have ghost stories, I said, smiling. Though whether the ghosts are real is a matter of debate. Oh, good. The Cletharian situation deteriorated faster than I'd anticipated. By day 10 of Finn's stay, we'd received 3 more formal complaints from the Cletharian Empire. Their ships had begun military exercises suspiciously close to the Vex system. The Galactic Council was calling emergency sessions, and I'd spent more time in strategic meetings than I'd spent sleeping. The worst part, I kept finding myself distracted during those meetings. "Your Majesty, if we reinforce the mining stations," one of my generals was saying. "The harmonic resonance in the South Wing is fascinating." I heard Finn's voice echoing from somewhere in my memory. Potential for escalation into full conflict. Like a conversation across time. Your Majesty, are you listening?" I blinked, focusing on the general's concerned face. "Of course, reinforce the stations. But avoid any action that could be interpreted as aggressive. Continue." After the meeting ended, Ixthar lingered behind. "You're distracted," he said bluntly. "I have a potential war on my hands. I'm allowed to be distracted." "You're not distracted by the war. You're distracted by the human." He held up a hand before I could protest. "I've known you for 60 years, Your Majesty. I know when something is weighing on your mind." I slumped in my chair, abandoning the regal posture. "He leaves in 4 days. Yes, and I've spent 10 days becoming attached to someone who's going to leave. Also, yes, this is your fault, you know. You told me to allow myself to be happy. And are you happy?" I thought about it, about the past 10 days, about finding excuses to visit the Western Wing, about the conversations we'd had, sometimes formal, sometimes not, about the way Finn's face lit up when he explained his work, about how he'd started leaving me notes on his daily progress reports, little observations about the palace or questions about Thalorian culture, about how 3 days ago he'd somehow managed to get locked in a supply closet and I'd heard him talking to himself. Well, this is embarrassing. At least the Queen isn't here to see this. Although if she was here, she could let me out. But then she'd know I got locked in a closet like an idiot. This is the most awkward thing that's ever— Oh, the door wasn't locked, it just sticks. Never mind. Crisis averted. Except now I'm talking to myself about doors. This is fine. Everything is fine. I'd walked away before he could discover I'd been standing right outside, trying very hard not to laugh. "Yes," I said finally, "I've been happy. Then it was worth it, even if it ends." Easy for you to say. You're not the one who's going to have to say goodbye. Before Ixthar could respond, Kale burst into the room, his usual composure shattered. "Your Majesty, the Cletharian delegation has returned. Ambassador Krathix is demanding another audience and he's brought—" Kale paused, looking bewildered. "He's brought his emperor with him. The Emperor of Cletharia, here, on my planet, without warning. This was either a peace offering or a declaration of war." "Where are they?" I demanded, already standing. "Approaching the palace. They'll be here within the hour. Summon the full court, prepare the throne room," and I hesitated. "Where's Engineer Garrett?" Kale blinked. "I believe he's in the Western Wing, Your Majesty." "Why?" "Because if the Cletharian Emperor is coming here, I want all non-essential personnel away from the throne room. Have him stay in his quarters until this is resolved." It was a reasonable precaution. It was also a way to keep Finn safe if things went badly. "Yes, Your Majesty." 1 hour later, I sat on the crystal throne, wearing my most formal robes and my most intimidating expression. The throne room was packed with my court, all of them in ceremonial dress. The air practically crackled with tension. The doors opened. Ambassador Krathix entered first, followed by Emperor Vothril of Cletharia. Was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer like metal. His 4 arms were adorned with ceremonial weapons, and he wore a crown of crystallized starlight that rivaled my own. He walked down the crystal pathway with measured steps, his delegation following. 20 guards just like before. But this time they were in full ceremonial armor, which could mean either peace or preparation for battle. The Emperor reached the base of my throne. For a long moment we simply looked at each other. 2 rulers, 2 empires, separated by centuries of rivalry and mistrust. Then he bowed. Not deeply, but it was a bow nonetheless. Queen Vexilleth, he said, his voice resonating through the chamber. I come to speak with you directly. Ambassadors and intermediaries have failed. Perhaps we can succeed where they could not. It was a reasonable opening, almost conciliatory. Emperor Vathril, I replied carefully, you are welcome to the Crystal Palace, though I admit surprise at your unannounced arrival. Announcements allow time for walls to be built, for positions to harden. I wanted to speak plainly, without the interference of protocol. Interesting. He wanted to negotiate directly. That suggested he wasn't actually interested in war, just in getting what he wanted through intimidation. Very well, I said. Let us speak plainly. You claim the Vex system. I maintain that it belongs to Thaloria by ancient treaty. Where do we go from here? You admit the treaty is ancient and valid. My people need the resources of that system, Your Majesty. Our empire is growing, our population expanding. The minerals there are essential to our development, and my people were there first. We have invested resources, established infrastructure, built lives there. You ask me to simply abandon all of that. I ask you to acknowledge reality. The Vex system sits in a sector that is surrounded by Cletharian space. It's an anomaly, a pocket of your territory completely isolated from the rest of your empire. It's indefensible in any serious conflict. He wasn't wrong. The Vex system was strategically vulnerable, but admitting that would weaken my position. Many things are difficult to defend, Emperor. That doesn't mean we abandon them. We were at an impasse. I could see it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw. Neither of us wanted war, but neither of us could afford to show weakness. Then I heard it, a voice, echoing from somewhere nearby. No, oh no, not now. Just need to check the conduits in the throne room area. Should take 5 minutes. In and out. The Queen said stay in my quarters, but this is technically work-related, so it should be fine. Probably, maybe. Oh, this is a bad idea, Finn. Finn was in the throne room approach, getting closer. I saw Kale's face go pale. Ixthar looked horrified. The Emperor's guards tensed, and then Finn walked into the throne room. He had his scanner in one hand, studying it intently. He was muttering to himself, completely oblivious to the fact that he just walked into a high-stakes diplomatic negotiation between two rival empires. Harmonic readings are off in this section. Need to adjust them. He looked up. His eyes went very wide. Oh, he said in a small voice. This is not good. The entire throne room was frozen. 200 Thalorians, 20 Cletharian guards, 1 emperor, and 1 absolutely terrified human engineer. Who, Emperor Vathril said slowly, is this? Before I could answer, Finn, bless his disaster of a heart, started talking. I'm Finn Garrett, Your Majesty, Highness. I'm sorry, I don't know the proper title for sorry. I'm the engineer working on the crystal conduits. I was just doing a routine check and I didn't realize there was. He gestured vaguely at the entire scene. All of this happening, a human, the Emperor observed, in the Crystal Palace, working on sacred Thalorian architecture. It was clear from his tone that he found this shocking, possibly offensive. The human is an expert in harmonic resonance technology, I said firmly. We engaged his services to repair damage to our oldest structures. You trust a human with 8,000-year-old crystal work. I trust competence regardless of species. Finn, who had been trying to edge toward the exit, suddenly stopped. He turned to look at the Emperor. Excuse me, he said. Did you say 8,000 years? Because actually, the conduits in the South Wing are closer to 8,500. The crystalline matrix there shows a slightly different formation pattern, which suggests they were built during the early expansion period rather than... Finn, I said gently. Perhaps now is not the time. Right, sorry. He went red. I'll just go, Your Majesty and Other Majesty. He started to leave again, then he paused. Actually, before I go, can I ask a question? It's related to the Vex system dispute. Every eye in the throne room turned to him. I felt my heart stop. Finn, I started. I'm not trying to interfere, he said quickly. But I've been reading about the Vex system. the geological surveys, the mineral composition, and I noticed something interesting. Emperor Vothrel looked at him with something between curiosity and annoyance. And what did you notice, human? The minerals you're interested in, the crystalline compounds, they're not unique to the Vex system. The same formations exist in at least 3 other systems in your territory. They're just deeper underground, so they're harder to access. The Emperor's expression darkened. We are aware of this, but the cost of deep mining would be roughly equivalent to the cost of building the infrastructure you'd need in the Vex system, Finn interrupted. Then immediately looked horrified that he'd interrupted an emperor. Sorry, but it's true. I ran the numbers. The Vex system looks attractive because there are already mining operations there. But starting from scratch in your own territory would cost about the same, maybe even less, because you wouldn't have to deal with the logistical challenges of operating in isolated space. There was absolute silence. Furthermore, Finn continued, apparently having decided he was already in trouble so he might as well keep going. The crystalline compounds in your territory are actually higher quality. The geological conditions there produced more refined formations, so you get better materials from less mining. How? The Emperor said slowly. Do you know this? I've been studying crystal resonance patterns for 15 years. It's kind of my thing, and when I heard about the dispute I got curious, so I pulled the public geological data and ran some analyses. He shrugged. I'm an engineer. We like solving problems. Emperor Vothrel looked at me. I looked at him. We were both processing the same thing. This human, this disaster of a human who got lost in my palace and talked to himself constantly, had just found a solution that dozens of diplomats and analysts had missed. Show me, the Emperor demanded. Show me your analysis. Oh, okay. Finn pulled out his datapad with shaking hands. So if you look at the mineral composition here for the next 15 minutes, Finn walked Emperor Vothrel through a detailed analysis of crystalline formations across 6 star systems. He used terms I barely understood, referenced geological processes that apparently related to his engineering work, and somehow made it all sound simple and obvious. The Emperor listened. His guards listened. My entire court listened. And slowly, gradually, I saw the Emperor's expression change from hostility to interest to thoughtful consideration. This would work, he said finally. If your analysis is correct, and I will verify it with my own experts, this would actually serve my people better than fighting over the Vex system. It would save lives too, Finn added. On both sides, war is expensive, and people die. That's bad. Such a simple statement, such an obvious truth. And yet in the midst of all our diplomatic posturing, we'd somehow forgotten it. The Emperor looked at me. It seems, Queen Vexilith, that your human engineer has accomplished what our ambassadors could not. He has a talent for unexpected solutions, I said, my voice carefully neutral even though my heart was pounding. Indeed, the Emperor bowed again, this time deeper. I will withdraw our claim to the Vex system. Instead, I propose a technology exchange. Your engineers clearly have expertise that could benefit both our empires. Perhaps this human could consult on our deep mining operations. Perhaps, I said, if he's willing. Everyone looked at Finn, who looked like he might faint. Yes. I mean, I'd need to finish the work here first, but after that. Yes, I'd be honored, Your Majesty. Excellent. The Emperor straightened. Then we have an agreement. Queen Vexilith, I apologize for the aggressive posture of the past weeks. It seems we allowed pride and history to cloud our judgment. As did I admitted. Perhaps we both needed an outside perspective. From a human who talks to himself and gets lost in palaces, the Emperor said, and there was the slightest hint of amusement in his voice. Hey, Finn protested weakly. I don't always get lost. The Emperor actually smiled. Then he and his delegation departed, leaving my court in stunned silence. As soon as the doors closed, the throne room erupted in relieved chatter. Crisis averted, war prevented. All thanks to a human engineer who'd accidentally wandered into a diplomatic negotiation. I caught Finn's eye. He looked absolutely terrified. "Come with me," I said quietly. I led him to my private study. As soon as the door closed, he started babbling. "I am so sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought maybe if I could help. And then I couldn't stop talking, and I probably made everything worse, and—" "Finn," I interrupted gently. "You saved us from a war." He stopped. What? "You found a solution that none of our experts saw. You gave the Emperor a way to get what he needed without conflict. You prevented thousands of deaths." Oh, he processed this. "So you're not mad?" "Mad, I search for the right word. I'm in awe of me, of you, of your brilliant, disaster-prone, completely unexpected mind." I realized I was standing very close to him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his eyes, close enough to count the freckles on his nose. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "Vex, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I leave tomorrow. My work here is done. The conduits are repaired, and I'm supposed to get on a ship and go back to Earth and probably never see you again." My heart clenched. I'd known this was coming. I'd been trying not to think about it. "I know," I said quietly, "and I can't do that. I can't just leave without telling you that these 2 weeks have been the best 2 weeks of my life. That talking to you, getting to know you, seeing how brilliant and funny and real you are, it's changed everything for me. Finn, I know I'm just some human engineer. I know you're a queen who's going to live for centuries. I know this doesn't make sense, but I had to tell you. I had to say it out loud, even if nothing can come of it." He thought nothing could come of it. He thought the difference between us was insurmountable. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was impossible. But Ixthar had told me to allow myself to be happy, even if it was temporary. So I did something I'd never done before. Something completely inappropriate for a queen. I kissed him. It was brief, gentle. A moment of pure feeling without protocol or planning. When I pulled back, Finn looked dazed. "That was—" He started. "A terrible idea," I finished. "Completely inappropriate. Absolutely unbecoming of a queen." "Best terrible idea ever," he whispered. I laughed. Actually laughed for the first time in decades. "What if," I said slowly, "you didn't go back to Earth tomorrow?" "What?" "The Emperor wants you to consult on his mining operations. That project could take months. And after that, there's certainly more work here in the palace. We have 10,000 years of architecture that could benefit from your expertise. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a choice. You can go back to Earth, back to your life there. Or," I took his hand, "or you can stay here with me." "With you," he repeated like he couldn't quite believe it. "I can't promise forever. Our lifespans are incompatible. Someday you'll grow old while I'm still young. That's going to be difficult." "Someday," he said, "but not today. Not tomorrow, not for years. No, not for years. Then I'm staying." He smiled that sunrise smile. "Definitely staying. Are you kidding? Pass up the chance to spend more time with you, study more Thalorian architecture, finally get a proper map of the palace. Your priorities are interesting. You're at the top of the list," he said seriously. "Everything else is just bonus." I kissed him again. Longer this time, less appropriate, completely improper for a queen. I didn't care. When we finally broke apart, Finn whispered, "So, does this mean you think I'm beautiful too?" "What?" "You called me beautiful in your thoughts, I could tell." "I never said that out loud." "You didn't have to. I can read people, remember, especially people who keep finding excuses to visit the conduit chamber. You're insufferable, and you're beautiful and brilliant, and I can't believe this is actually happening." "Neither can I," I admitted. There was a knock on the door. Ixthar's voice. "Your Majesty, the Council is requesting a briefing on the Cletharian situation." "Tell them I'll be there shortly," I called back. "Very well, and congratulations on avoiding war, among other things." I heard him walk away, and I could practically feel his satisfied smile. I looked at Finn. "I should attend that meeting." "Of course, but after I'm taking the rest of the day off." for the first time in 89 years, and we're going to take a proper tour of the palace, with a map. Best date ever, Finn said happily. As I prepared to face my council, I realized something. For 89 years, I'd been Queen Vexilith of the Crystal Throne, powerful, untouchable, alone. But now, thanks to a disaster-prone human engineer who talked to himself and got lost in my palace, I was something else too. I was happy. And maybe, just maybe, being happy wasn't such a terrible thing for a queen to be. 6 months later, and if we adjust the harmonic frequency here, we can actually improve the efficiency by another 3%. Which doesn't sound like much, but over the course of a year, Vex, are you listening? I looked up from my reports. Finn was hanging upside down on some scaffolding, again, in what was now our private study. He'd moved his equipment in 3 months ago and hadn't left. I'm always listening, I said. Liar, you have that look you get when you're thinking about agricultural reports. I was thinking about you. While reviewing agricultural reports, I'm multi-talented. He flipped right side up and climbed down. What were you thinking? That 6 months ago, I never could have imagined any of this. You living here, working here, being here. Having regrets? Absolutely none. I pulled him close. Though I do occasionally regret not executing you for that death pledge incident. What death pledge incident? Wrong story. You're thinking about other humans now. I'm wounded. You're ridiculous. And you're beautiful, still beautiful, will always be beautiful. He kissed me softly, even when you're reviewing grain projections. Especially then. From outside the study, I heard Kale's voice. Your Majesty, the Cletharian delegation has arrived for the